Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm working on some old worn overdrives. At the end of the last video, I mentioned I wouldn't be needing this main shaft gear. I think a lot of y'all knew what I was talking about, but here it is. I'm going to be using a worn overdrive on my 3B. Of course, in the last video, I put them big old Terraflex low gears inside this Dana 18 here. And you just can't have the ultimate Dana 18 transfer case without a good overdrive bolted onto it. That's what's really cool about these offset transfer cases. Normally right here would just be a cover and then your main shaft gear goes in right here. But because everything's offset, you can actually just bolt one of these overdrives onto the back here and you put your planetary inside there. And that means you can split all your gears by like 25%, I want to say is what these are. So you can use these overdrives in any gear. It doesn't just have to be your highest gear. Now, I'm sure you noticed I've got a couple of the units sitting here. What's funny is I found this one, actually one of my followers on Instagram had it. I want to say it was up in Pennsylvania or something like that, but he'd already went all the way through it. He cleaned it up really good, inspected it, and said it was in good working condition. It does look like this one's been taken good care of. This is the planetary that came with it, and it does spin really good. Feels like everything's in really good shape. The only thing I don't like about this, I didn't know it when I bought it, which I probably would have bought it anyways, but this is like a really late production, I guess when they're about to quit making these. And it's only got 2 planetaries in it, and it's not machined to accept the other 2. Whereas this one has all 4 of them in it. And honestly, I'd never seen one of these with only 2 in it. I don't know how much that really affects it. I feel like 4's got to be better than 2, but who knows? So this unit right here, actually my buddy Tim turned me on to this one. Swamp Fire Knives is his username on Instagram. Really cool guy, makes beautiful handmade knives. But he hooked me up with this deal. This is the matching planetary that came with it. What's interesting about this is the story he was told when he got it is it was completely rebuilt in the 90s but never installed. And looking it over, as far as I can tell, I think that is the case. It's been sitting in a box without a lid on it, so it is kind of dirty, but it does look like it was previously rebuilt. Something to match that is all the stuff that came with it that was in that box. Here's like some old bearings. Here's that retaining clip, new, still in the envelope. The lock washer. There's different bags like from Advance Adapters. There's somebody's old business card from 4-Wheel Parts. Some other used parts like the oil scoop here. There's some planetary gears, a set of 4 of them right here, some bolts, all kinds of little stuff that does look like it was replaced on here. And this was in the box too, and this thing looks pretty dang rough. So I wonder if all this was replaced too, because there's a bunch of receipts in this old catalog, and this is, I think it says 91, yeah. So 91, which checks out, he said rebuilt in the 90s. Here's all my gaskets. This is all a bunch of receipts from whoever did the rebuild. And how cool is that? An exploded view of the worn overdrive. And then all the different part numbers, everything you need to rebuild this. And looking through these receipts, it does look like he ordered a bunch of this stuff brand new out of this catalog. Now, the reason I have 2 of these, it was a good buy. It was the right price. And this was before I had the Stinky Chicken, the green CJ5 out there. But I've since decided to keep both of these because one will end up in the 3B and the other will end up in that green CJ5. I want to put the better of the 2 in the 3B though because it's got the nicer drivetrain in it. And as far as I can tell, this right here is probably the nicer setup. I don't like just the 2 planetaries. And I did think about maybe taking some of this stuff and swapping it over to this stuff. Now, like I said, this is rebuilt, but something in there is catching. It'll only turn so far in either direction before it locks up. So I don't know if it was assembled incorrectly or maybe just from sitting, there's some dirt or junk in there. Now, these are worn overdrives. These are actually made by, the same company that makes the winches. What you need to know about any of these overdrives, though, is these planetaries have this big bowl gear on it. And you can see this one right here is stamped 26. This one right here is stamped 29. So the earlier Dana 18 transfer cases, all the way up until like around the 3Bs, The main shaft gear they were running was the 26 tooth. Later, once 3Bs and CJ5, CJ6, stuff like that, you're going to see these 29 tooth gears. Now, just because you buy an Overdrive and it's a 26 tooth, but you need a 29 tooth, you're not stuck because these bowl gears are removable. And that's what I've got sitting right here. This is a brand new bowl gear. I actually bought this from Herm, the Overdrive guy. So to work with the TerraFlex low gears, you've got to have one of these special bowl gears. Advanced Adapters used to sell them, but when I talked to them on the phone the other day, well, actually a few weeks ago, they said they're no longer producing them. They told me to go talk to Herm. Now, saying all that, I know that the green Jeep out there is a 29 tooth. So this right here would go straight into there and work just fine. The 26 tooth, I really don't ever see needing a 26 tooth. So this would be the ideal candidate to swap this onto. That way I don't have to swap everything twice. And I'd rather put the two planetaries in the green Jeep than in the 3B. But this one seems to be in really good shape, whereas this one, there might be something wrong with it. So I think starting out, I'm going to go ahead and take this apart and just see what's going on in there, what's holding it up. Maybe it's a simple fix. I can swap this bowl gear on and everything will work out just right. The way I believe these come apart, you've got the snap ring, retaining ring deal right here, and this just uncoils. And then there's two Allen bolts right here, and you got to take them out too. And then I believe this bowl gear just separates. Put this back together and put the bearings back in here. I don't have these on top though, but it does seem to be turning a lot better. It almost feels like something in these bearings, it's almost like they've just been setting so long they've got kind of sticky. Maybe the grease in them's kind of breaking down or something. Then I'm going to be in good shape though. I think I'm going to put this 29 tooth into the green Jeep, and then I'll have this one right here I can put into this. Now, I don't have any more of these bearings right here. I didn't order any or replacement, but these do look like they are brand new. I'm sure they were just put in here and never used. So if there's any way I can get these out without messing them up and swap them over to my TerraLow bowl gear here, everything else should just bolt back together and I'll be in good shape. Now, I did notice that this one, the one I got from Tim, it doesn't have this little bolt piece that looks like this right here. This was never installed for some reason, and you've got to take the planetaries out, and maybe just two of them. I'm going to find out, see if I can get this in here. But it's kind of captured in there by these splines, and then by your planetaries is what keeps it from coming out. This right here actually screws on to the end of that main shaft. So I've got one of these planetaries out right here. You're going to want to be really careful doing this because you can see it's full of little needle bearings, which just seems to be a theme on all this old stuff. Everything's got needle bearings in it, but everything seems to be packed with grease still and everything. So it's all holding together, it's sticking good. You just gotta be real careful. These pins just slide out. There's also a washer that goes in front of it right there. Well, you can see, it looks like you gotta remove all of them to get that thing back in there. It's unfortunate, but I guess that's the only way to do it. I got all them little planetary gears out. And I'm gonna tell you what, I believe this thing right here is brand new, never used. This one right here, that used one that was in the box, you can see all the wear that was on it. Like these are just really wore out. I'm pretty sure I found the receipt for this, that this was bought brand new, and that is so cool. It's almost like finding a new old stock part, honestly. Now I can take this washer and drop it down in there. And then put this little nut down in there on top of it. Something I did notice, you don't really hear that one moving around. This one moves around a bunch because I don't think this one has an O-ring on it. This one does though. Now that I got that in there though, I can finally put all these back together. So here's a big win. I got them bearings pressed out of that bowl gear right there, that 26 tooth one. And these aren't like a crazy tight fit. I mean, they are a press fit, but there wasn't a ton of force to get them to come out. I actually took one of my little driving cups. This is the 50 millimeter one. Something a hair bigger might be a little bit better, but that worked just fine. I pressed it from the top that way, so that way there's plenty of clearance for them to fall out. And it don't look like it hurt them at all. Everything still turns fine. These are kind of interesting. So there's the brand. It says Torrington, and then maybe 330. And then that says B2812. Maybe you can still get that part number, I don't know. But it looks pretty simple installing these. One's gonna sit flush with the top, and the other one's gonna sit flush with this little bottom piece right here. So I'm gonna take this back over to the press, and then I should be ready to start putting all this stuff back together. So I decided to err on the side of caution. I'm not sure if these bearings were installed correctly maybe, and that's why they're kind of binding or whatever. I went ahead and took the bearings out of the other bowl gear, that 29 tooth, because those felt really good. When I get ready to put the other one in the CJ5 out there, I'll probably just order some brand new bearings for it. But now I think I'm ready to start putting this thing back together. I've got my little roller bearings here and these spacers. It looks like the thin spacer right here, and there's a thick one. Looks like the thin one goes up against these pins right here. Then this bowl gear should just slide right on. Just like that. Feels good. And then these bolt on top. And I gotta put this little band back on. I believe that's got it. And that is so much better than the way it was before. I got the 4 planetary gear set in this one. And then of course that Terralo bowl gear, top it all off. I think this right here is gonna be a dang good unit. Well, y'all, accomplished today what I was hoping I would. I got everything on this Overdrive set up, ready to go into the Jeep. Like I was saying in the previous video, the transmission will bolt on first, then the transfer case. This Overdrive will be the last piece to go on. Now, I know I didn't go very deep technically into any of this stuff, and it's because I'm not an expert on these Overdrives. There's so much to know about them, so many variations. The best thing you can do is go to somebody like Herm who knows these things inside and out. There is some things to think about, to watch out for when you're buying an Overdrive like this. I got really lucky finding one that was already rebuilt and everything checks out. All these parts look sparkling brand new, like it's never even been run. But the trouble with secondhand Overdrives is like any other piece on a Jeep. They get neglected, they get wore out. Like that piece I was showing y'all that was in that box, the one that had to be replaced, it was just completely spent and used up. It wouldn't have worked right. Make sure to ask all the right questions when you're buying one, especially over the internet. Now, Herm does have like remanufactured ones, or he'll rebuild one if you find one and want to send it to him. He's also got all the parts you need to refurbish these. Keep in mind though, the parts today are not as cheap as they were back in the 90s when whoever rebuilt this one. Now, one of these overdrives actually came with the shifter lever, the linkage, the brackets, everything I need to put in the Jeep. And that's something you also need to be thinking about. Make sure the price reflects whether or not it has all that stuff, because it's stuff you're either gonna have to make or find or buy new. These old overdrives are super cool though. I can't wait to try it out. It should make this Jeep a beast on the trail and on the road. It's one more piece to the puzzle, one more thing to make this Jeep just that much better. I really appreciate y'all checking out this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see y'all next time.